Hi, and welcome to Doing the Opposite Business Disruptors, the podcast where you get to meet incredible leaders who have swum against the tide, thrown out the rule book, and changed the way their sector does business. I'm Jeff Dewing, best-selling author and chief exec of Cloud FM. Today, you're going to meet Gary Ridge. Gary has been chief exec of the famous brand that I'm sure you've all heard of, WD-40. Now, for 25 years, Gary has navigated business across the world with his incredible brand, WD-40. But what Gary has unbelievably achieved is a world-beating engagement from his incredible team from across the globe. A whopping 93-94% promoters. That is the envy of any brand that exists on this planet. It smashes Nike, it smashes Apple, it smashes just about any major name you can think of. And today, we're going to hear the secret behind Gary's success. So, hi Gary, thank you so much for taking the time for joining me, this afternoon in Portugal. I think it's morning in San Diego, but thank you so much for making the time. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Hey Jeff, thanks very much, mate. It's so good to be with you.
Gary, I want to get straight down into it. First and foremost could you just sort of spend a minute or so just sort of giving us the headline of Gary, and perhaps the sort of very whistle-stop tour of your journey to find where you are today.
I was born in Sydney, Australia. I'm an Aussie. So we share the same royalty, Jeff. There you go. Although you English blokes have never forgiven the Aussies because we got sent there by the best judges in England. And, we got sunny beaches and good food. And, we won't talk about the weather and the food in the UK, but I know you're not there right now. When I left school, I worked for a retail organisation in Australia. I was a management trainee. I finished that trainee course, and then I got into wholesale selling. I did some work in marketing, and through that, I actually ended up meeting the people from WD-40 back in the early 80s. And I was working for the distributor of WD-40 in Australia. And at that time, the company was thinking about how do we take the blue and yellow can with a little red top to the world. It was an established brand in a number of developed countries, but we knew there were lots of squeaks around the world that we could take care of. So in '87, they invited me to join the company. And here's my first piece of advice: always take your dad's advice, because my dad was an engineer. He worked for the same company for 50 years. He was born in 1907. And I said to him one day, Dad, I've been asked to go and join WD-40. He says, you can't go wrong with that stuff, son. So Dad was right. So in 1987, I opened the WD-40 Company Australia subsidiary, and I did that with a fax machine under my bed. We took it up from the bootstraps. And 6 months later, we were up and running. We had our office going. I'd employ our people. And from 87 through to 94, even though based in Sydney, I did most of my work up in Asia. We were there were lots of squeaks in China, and we're gonna take care of those. So, and then in 1994, I was having a chat with the then president of WD-40 Company, and I said, "Is there anything else you'd like me to do?" And he said, "Well, funny you should ask. Do you want to move to the United States?" And I said, "To do what?" He said, "We seem to have a passion for our global business. Why don't you come over here and help me take the brand around the world?" So, lesson number 2: always be ready to disrupt yourself. So, disruption it was, and here I packed up toys with the family and moved 8,000 miles across the ocean to San Diego and started working on our global business, and spent a lot of time in Latin America and then in Europe through 94 to 97. And then that CEO retired, and for some reason, the board of a public company thought this Aussie bloke might be okay. So, I told them, be careful, I'm consciously incompetent and probably wrong and roughly right at most things. But anyhow, they took me on. And it's interesting because I was on a flight from Sydney, from Los Angeles to Sydney, just a little while after taking the helmet of leadership at WD-40 Company. And I was doing some reading, and I read two things that really changed me. The first one was a statement of the Dalai Lama, which was our purpose in life is to make people happy. If we can't make them happy, at least don't hurt them. And I thought that's pretty sound advice. And the second thing I read was something of Aristotle, where Aristotle said, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. I thought, okay, so as a leader, if we could create an environment where people actually enjoyed what they were doing and they were doing something that was meaningful and purposeful, I'm guessing they're going to enjoy it more and they're going to do better work. But I didn't know how to do that. Yeah. So when I got back, eventually I found a program at the University of San Diego. It was a master's degree in leadership. And so I'm already CEO, and I'm thinking I'm going to go back to school. So I went back to school to the University of San Diego, and I did this master's degree in leadership. And in fact, that's where I met my mentor and my dear friend, Dr. Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager. He was my professor. In fact, I played 9 holes of golf with him yesterday. Ken doesn't live far from me. He's 83 years old now, and we've become very dear friends. And so the 3 people I owe my success to are Aristotle, the Dalai Lama, and Ken Blanchard.
Fantastic.
So I did that university course, learned a lot about leadership, and then started to apply those principles at WD-40 Company. And the rest is history. 25 years as a public company CEO. We grew the company 6 times in revenue. We took the market cap from about 300 million to 2.5 billion. That's all lovely. But the thing that I'm most proud of is 98% of people at WD-40 Company said they loved to work at the company. And we had a 93% engagement. So people were enjoying their work and doing great work. So that's it.
Thank you for that. And that's a real good overview that sets the scene for anybody that wants to understand perhaps what we're going to be talking about. And I think the bit that I find really interesting is let me ask you another question. So you've taken on this, I guess the classic example I love, which is a saying that I've lived by all my life unknowingly, and that is, as an entrepreneur or as a leader or an aspiring leader, the key to success is bite off more than you can chew and then learn very quickly how to chew it. And if you listen to your story in that Whistle Stop tour, you've gone from where you were in distribution to setting up WD-40 Australia, a new journey, a new adventure, and all the trials and tribulations go with it. You've then taken on the biggest job in the organisation. And at which point did you think, shit, have I done the right thing here? Am I going to get found out? Am I really going beyond my capabilities?
I don't know that I ever thought that, because I always believed that I was not the smartest knife in the drawer. I mean, I honestly used to introduce myself as, g'day, I'm Gary Ridge. I'm the consciously incompetent, probably wrong and roughly right chairman and CEO of WD-40 Company. And I think that was the key, is that our job as leaders or coaches is not to run onto the field and try and kick every ball. Our job is to find the best players we can, to observe the play, spend a lot of time on the sideline, know what it takes to win, make sure that the ball's got air in it and pumped up, so that in other words, the resources were there, and then spend a lot of time in the locker room. And a lot of time in the locker room is where you build trust, you build that collaboration with your people, because a leader needs to hurt a little more so those they lead hurt a little less. And the two things that people really, really want is to know that they matter and know that they belong. So I don't think I was ever really, I never had imposter syndrome, but I was very aware of the fact that I wasn't capable of doing everything myself, and that's why I depended on others.
Yeah. So I guess when you come back to what you just said there about a leader hurts a little bit more to prevent it, it's like the captain on the battlefield, isn't it? That will make sure his men eat before he does, and all this sort of stuff. It's like with us in COVID, when we was a business like most that struggled heavily in COVID. One of the things we had to do is sort of shave off salaries and benefits, and we said we're all going to suffer a little so that no one suffers a lot. And it's that same sort of mantra about truly looking after each other, because that's what it was only ever about. And I think COVID just shone a light on that. It shone a light on the fact that we've been getting it wrong for decades in how we manage businesses in a command and control environment, and so on and so on. Which is why it's, the stuff you talk about, the stuff you write about is music to my ears, because there's a lot of leaders out there, leaders, managers, owners, that don't have the courage to realise that the people around them, given the opportunity and the freedom, will rarely, if ever, let you down.
Correct.
Everyone is chasing the ghosts. Everyone thinks that everyone's out for a buck, and give people the true freedom, give them the ability to manage, influence, or control their destiny. Every human being is a very, very clever individual. You just got to give them the opportunity to show you.
Yeah, and I think, Jeff, one of the things that's important of that is you have to give them a safe playing field, and that's why in an organization, a clearly defined set of hierarchical values are there to protect people and set them free, so that, they don't have to quack up the hierarchy every time they want to make a decision. So, I think that the fundamentals are, number one, as a leader, you have to be committed to the fact that it's all about the people you have the privilege to lead. Number two, you have to have a authentic and clearly defined purpose of why we get up every day. At WD-40, our purpose was to create positive, lasting memories. Yeah. And we did it with the products we sold, with the relationships we built, with the way we treated our teammates, or our tribe mates, as we call them. Then you have to have a set of values, which is the playing field. Is this a safe playing field? Then you have to have a clear strategy. You have to be bold at execution. And then you have to reduce fear in the organization. And we did that by taking the word failure out and then replacing it with learning moments. So we said that we never make mistakes. And I go out speaking on the speaking circuit. I get up and I say, I'm going to make a comment now that's going to blow your brains out. I've never made a mistake in my life. And everybody kind of goes, and I said, but I've had millions of learning moments. And once you get to the point of understanding that every opportunity is a learning moment, it's actually the trigger for success, because the definition of a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome that has to be openly and freely shared with all people. So that's what we have. So take fear out. And then once you've got those things in place, our job as leaders is to help people win, help them win their game. But unfortunately, a lot of people protect their own comfort zone at the expense of other people's development, because servant leadership is not about kumbaya, popcorn and pizza. It's a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted, and the genius is in the end, in the middle.
Yeah, and again, I think, listening to you, and what was interesting is when you sort of talk about failure, which has a negative connotation to 90% of the population of the world. One of the things that I did in our business probably 6 or 7 years ago, which is why I was so keen to talk to you, because we seem to be brothers from a different mother, but one of the things we said is it's impossible to fail in this organization. You only succeed or learn. Because if you have fear of failure, you'll never be creative, you'll never try anything new, and nothing will change. The world will stand still, which is a pointless existence. And then we also go on to say, why do we all even exist on this planet? What is anybody's purpose? We can all say, oh, well, my purpose is to, save the whale, or save the oceans, or save the Amazon forest. How do you make it more simplistic? Our purpose on this planet is purely to look after our fellow men before we look after ourselves. And it's to share knowledge. That's the two reasons we're here. And there's no other reason for us to be here. I love the saying as well, no soldier goes to war for God and country. They go to war for the person on their left and the person on their right. And when we truly understand the power in that, you can move mountains, whether you're a community or a company or an organization or whatever. It's about putting people at the heart of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. At WD-40, we called ourselves a tribe, not a team, because one of the biggest desires we have as human beings is to belong. And our tribal promise was a group of people that came together to protect and feed each other. That was the promise we had to each other. That's why we got up every day. And it was interesting during COVID, and, you know, we all went through so many different emotions and times of uncertainty. We did a check-in employee opinion survey in January of 2021. So at this time, there was still no sight of a vaccine. We were still in this really uncertain times of where we even going to exist as a human race. And I said, I want to make sure that we're not draining cultural equity. We're not draining the engagement of our people, because we were doing things differently and we thought we were, you know, doing them reasonably well. So we did a survey. We went out and did our survey. One of the results that came back was it had increased, and it was the answer to this question. I feel excited about my place in the company's future. And I thought, and 98% of our people globally were positive about that statement. And I scratched my damn bald head and I said, you know, I don't get it. Why did they say that? There must be something wrong with the data. Go and look at the data. The data was right. And when we sort of dug into it a little bit, the people came back and said, I feel safe. If there's any place I want to be right now, I want to be here, because we are a group of people that are coming together to protect and feed each other. We care about each other. And if we're going to be anywhere right now, I want to be here. And I thought, wow, that has really proven the power of a really strong connected culture.
Yeah, yeah. But when you went on this journey and you read the quotes from Dalai Lama and the various other learnings you had in the master's degree you went on, did people around you, and being a public company, you've obviously got shareholders, right? You've got your annual general meetings, you've got the various questions and challenges you'll get from the board. Did anyone ever say to you, Gary, what on earth are you doing? This is not how you run a business.
Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah, of course. You know, it's like, and in fact, you know, in the early stages, a few of the leadership team said I drank too much of Ken Blanchard's Kool-Aid. I mean, you know, but I was convinced that and I was convinced that there was nothing wrong with creating a place where people enjoyed doing what they were doing. Now, you know, we still had to make hard decisions, and in the early times, my board really didn't understand it at all. I'd take the employee opinion survey data and share it with them on, you know, in those days on an annual basis, and their eyes would kind of glaze over and can we get on and look at the financials? And, you know, what they didn't understand is it's very simple. You can have the best strategy in the world. Let's write a strategic plan, take it to some smart professor, and, hey, what do you think of the strategic plan? Beautiful, 70 out of 100. Thank you. Then you go back and you implement the plan. If only 20% of your people go to work every day committed to and having faith in the purpose of the plan, 20 times 70 is 1,400. But if 80% of the people go to work every day and are committed to going to work at a place where they're making a contribution to something bigger than themselves, they're learning something new, they're protected and set free by a compelling set of values, and they go home happy, 80 times 70 is 5,600. So it's simple math. And as we started to implement and our performance, you know, continued to grow, you know, it was like, okay, now do you get it? Now, today, you know, I stepped down as CEO last August after 25 years. The last 5 or 6 years, as culture has become a headline in what we should think about in business, everybody wants to embrace it. And it's like, well, where have you been for the last 15 years? I mean...
Yeah, but I guess maybe, Gary, you could argue that, you know, COVID has shone a light on it to those naysayers that have said, no, you know, you've got to have people in fear. They've got to be fearful of their job, then they'll do what you want them to do. And people have done the same thing all their lives and always expected a different result, which by default is insanity, right? So I think COVID shone a light on it for a lot of people, and I think there is a lot of change going on. But people are very, very fearful of coming out of their comfort zone, you know, even at leadership level. And I think until you do, you know, one of the things I do on my keynotes is I put up this picture of a man in a comfort zone and say, we've all seen this, right? You know, what do you do when you come out of your comfort zone? I do a little exercise where you put your fingers together like this, and I make the whole audience do this. And I say, right, okay, are you all ready now? What, you just change your thumb, do it that way. How does it feel? They go, immediately go, wow, uncomfortable. I said, so if you did that every day for the next 6 months, how do you think it would feel? They go, well, more comfortable. And it's about, you've got to learn to come out of your comfort zone. You then go into the learning zone. You then go into the growth zone. And when you hit the growth zone, that's where the magic happens, right? And because nothing else changes otherwise.
Yeah, COVID slapped leadership up the side of the head. That's really what it did. And I wrote an article that I posted on LinkedIn called The Great Escape, because there was a lot of talk about the Great Resignation. This wasn't the Great Resignation. This was people, were they escaping to your culture or from your culture? And in fact, I'm just in the process of my new book, and it's called Any Dumbass Can Do It. And it really is. And it's going to be released probably early next year. But it really talks about, even me, the dumbass from Australia. If you really understand what the principles are to build great cultures, any dumbass can do it. So don't tell me you can't do it. You've got to be committed to doing it. And it's simple. It's not easy. And time is not your friend. When I was at school in Australia, in high school, Des Moines Boys High School, my science teacher gave me a petri dish. And he said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to grow culture in this petri dish. And the learning I got from that was, number one, what are the ingredients you need to put in to grow great culture? Well, in an organization, we can list the ingredients. You've got to have a true purpose. You've got to have values. You've got to have empathy. You've got to have clarity around accountability. Put all those ingredients in.
Yeah.
Now, what do you need to do? You need to watch the petri dish every day. And you need to feed the good ingredients so they grow. And you need to treat the toxins as soon as they get in there, because the toxins will send the culture sour in a nanosecond. Unfortunately, a lot of leaders think that great culture is, let's bring in some simple training program. We'll sprinkle some fairy dust over the business. Everybody's been to that training program now. Oh, we've changed. No, we haven't. No, this is simple, not easy, and time is not your friend.
Yeah. It's like when we have a finance challenge and the team of finance people will say, Jeff, we've got a problem we want to solve. So we're going to go into a brainstorming session. So those going to go into that session then. He goes, I'm going to bring all my top finance people in. I said, no, you're not. You're going to send in all the people that know nothing about finance, because then you're going to get a broader perspective, right? You're going to have one person from finance that sets the scene and listens. That person from finance is not allowed to give the answer or try to give the answer. They're there to listen and train people on saying yes and, yes and, yes and, yes and. And the outcomes just blew their mind. But yet they thought I had two heads when I made that suggestion. Every single human being you can learn from, whether you like it or not, you can learn from every single conversation you have with somebody. When you've learned that incredible trait, when you go through your leadership, of the ability to truly listen. And if you can truly listen, you learn every day just by default anyway, without reading books and watching programs and going to university. You're going to learn stuff every single day. And a bit I loved as well, and I've stolen it, Gary, is sending your ultimate aim to send everybody home happy and safe every day. And if you can achieve that, you've got a great business. So tell me, during the journey, the bit I'm interested in, so you've had this great journey, you've come up with these incredible results, it's world-beating by any stretch of imagination. We've got a great culture that we will never accept is as good as it can be, so we work on it every day. Give me some examples, if you have any, where you felt, oh, this is really, really tough. Is there any particular examples where you think, yeah, I'm not sure I've got this right, or shit, this is more difficult than I thought it was, or Jesus, I never expected those barriers. At what point did you were there any points where you wobbled and you thought, wow, am I really getting this right?
Oh, there were many times when, I went into my office, shut the door, put my head in my hands and said, holy hell, what are we going to do here? But that's when I went and sought out those that were around me. Of course, if you lead a company for 25 years, we went through a number of economic cycles. We went through, the Asian crisis, wars here, this, that, there, and uncertainty is a series of future events that may or may not occur. And I think what we need to do is ensure that uncertainty doesn't paralyze us. So there were times, but I'll give you an example of how values in an organization can be very powerful. Our second value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. And I went into a meeting one morning, and there was someone in that meeting, a senior member of my team, who was not creating positive, lasting memories. they'd had a really bad morning. It was one of those meetings. I'm sure you and our people that are with us today have been in a meeting where someone starts just sucking the oxygen out of the room because of the way they behave. So, what do you do as a leader? Well, you got a couple of options, Jeff. Option one is you kind of pause the meeting and say, Jeff, that behavior is unacceptable. You need to pull your head in and, stop disrupting the meeting. Don't do that, because everyone else in the room says, when am I going to get publicly assassinated by the boss? And the person in the room doesn't gain any benefit of it. Second thing is you can do nothing. And now that's a toxin just got into the culture dish, right? Yep. What we're really saying is that behavior is acceptable. So at the end of the meeting, I'll call him Jeff. I said, Jeff, let's go for a walk. So we walked out of our building and I started to look under a car and in a trash can and behind a tree. And Jeff says to me, what the hell are you doing? I said, Jeff, I'm looking for you. The you I know and love was not in that room today. What's on your mind? What's getting in your way? And that opened our conversation. And I said, Jeff, what our value is of creating positive, lasting memories. And I'm going to tell you, you didn't create too many in there this morning. So let's talk. So I think to answer your question about when it was tough, the toughest times were when you had to deal with people, but you did it with love and care, and that's why I said most people protect their own comfort zone at the expense of someone else's development. I could have walked out of there and done nothing. And that would have just put some toxin in that petri dish. So I think the toughest times were making those tough calls on people, but being brave enough to be able to say, I truly care about you. That's why I need to have this conversation with you, because I want you to win. I want you to get an A.
That's the thing that frightens most people, even managers, when you're trying to bring managers through the process. It's that fear of conflict, and conflict in a positive way rather than conflict in a negative way. Conflict is not about reprimanding somebody. Conflict is about having a difficult conversation, which is less difficult when it's delivered with care and empathy, right? Because you show vulnerability, and the vulnerability gives you a superpower, which means the person that you're talking to suddenly says, well, I now want to look after you. And you create this safe environment to have that conversation, don't you? It is that empathy and vulnerability.
Have you ever met this person?
No.
This is Al, or Alice, the soul-sucking CEO of Fear Inc. So I invented this there's big owls over on my shoulder.
Oh, I can see. Yeah.
So I invented this person as the person I talk about, who as a leader has toxic behaviors. So, Al is corporate royalty. I've spent my life climbing up the corporate ladder. I'm going to have that big office and you're going to bring me tea in the morning. Al's a micromanager, wants to be in everything. Al's always right, whether they're right or wrong. Al always has the answer, and Al's ego eats his empathy instead of his empathy eating his ego. And Al hates feedback. So Al, or Alice, the soul-sucking CEO or the soul-sucking leader, is the person that really creates this environment. So when I go out speaking, I take Al with me and give him away or give her away to people in the audience. And as I'm talking about, people nod. They know Al, or Alice. So
no, it's a great way of articulating the story, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that leaders have a problem with. Is they know how they feel, they know what they want to do, but they don't know how to articulate it, which then becomes transmissible, which then helps to grow the environment in which you're operating. But it's a fascinating subject, and I think there's more and more people now considering perhaps behaving differently, realizing that it isn't about knowing it all, realizing that it isn't about command and control. But I think there needs to be more people like you and I and people like us that need to help businesses move at a faster pace, because when you call it the Great Escape, I refer to it as a Great Resignation only because that was a recognised term. And I said in my keynotes, what caused the Great Resignation? And you have a load of people come out and go, because people were greedy and they want more money and all these other stuff going on. And then then we get to the end of it, and I say, no, this is what caused the Great Resignation. And then up comes a slide with a load of people masking it with COVID. Why do we think COVID caused it? And then people come out and sell these things, and then I put up the final slide, and there's just people doing this, thinking, So what COVID done was it gave the entire population something they'd never had before, time to think. It gave them time to reflect on their lives, what they thought was important, what should be important. And when you then look at a Gallup survey that says 80% of people across the globe do not want to be in their job, that means we've got a big problem, right?
Absolutely.
We as leaders, we as businesses have got a big problem, right? And we've got to start looking in the mirror.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things too. I mentioned I was, with Ken Blanchard yesterday, and we were in the golf cart, and we were talking about the book that he and I wrote together in 2009, which is a book called Don't Mark My Paper, or Helping People Win at Work. And the highlight is Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. And we were talking about how today it is even more relevant than ever, because it's really around, we are there to help people get A's, not mark their papers. The problem is with the leaders where there's conflict, it's because there's not clarity around what we expect from each other. Yeah. So we're going to always let people down if we don't have clarity around what we expect from each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes those conversations that you referenced, Jeff, really difficult, because the other person, well, no, I didn't understand it to be like that. No. So, leaders, people who lead people need to be very sure that they've really defined what an A looks like. Then your job as a leader is to help the person you're leading get that A, not to mark their paper.
Yeah. And there's little tips and tricks, isn't there? There's some stuff that we've done in our business for years where you have a meeting and you're agreeing how to solve a problem, and we all agree a plan or whatever. And then what you do is you say to the people in the room, right, just play back to me what you heard. Because the amount of times people hear something different to what was said is amazing, right? So it helps you create that clarity again, because clarity is the number one driver.
Absolutely.
Freedom without clarity is anarchy. So you just get chaos, right? So it's just about, we're back to your Petri dish. It's about those right ingredients and the tools to create, the clarity, the safety, no fear of failure, and also this element of empathy and vulnerability. If you get those ingredients right, you get a powerhouse. And that's the bit I love, because we're executing it now. You've already executed it. It's a great case study I use all the time. I take a lot of fun in doing it. And thank you for giving me the material to use.
Not at all. Yeah. What you were saying also reminded me of a great quote of Brené Brown's, which is, in the absence of facts and data, we make up stories, and those stories become our truth. So again, as leaders, how do we ensure that we're sharing, the actual transparency with people so that they're not making up their own truth, which is actually false? And this is simple stuff, it's what we were brought up around. And the other reason that I love the piece about sending people home happy is this: happy people create happy families. Happy families create happy communities. Happy communities create happy countries. Happy countries create a happy world. And by golly, we need a happy world.
We do.
And business leaders have the biggest opportunity, and I would even say responsibility, to help us turn this world around, because it's not real happy right now.
No, and of course you're absolutely bang on. And I think we just need to realise that we actually do have the power to solve those problems. We've got to stop thinking about the elephant and realise it's one bite at a time, because we will get it. And then the other one I love as well is the Henry Ford thing, because I'm very, very passionate about thinking time for people in my organisation. And Henry Ford has said thinking is very difficult, which is why so few choose to do it. Because when you get the time to think and reflect, wonderful things happen, and it's fantastic. Anyway, Gary, we're going to move into the last section now. Well, I'd love to ask you a couple of quick questions, if I may. If there was one thing you're going to answer me with now, what are you most grateful for?
People. Relationships. Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relationships. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. And then the final question, if there was only one message, what one message would you send out to the world?
It's not about you.
Bingo. Boom. Love it. It's not about you. Yeah. Fantastic. I love that. Right, Gary, listen, it's been an incredible Incredible conversation. I knew it would be. I'm so pleased that I managed to get you on, and I'm hoping at some point our paths will cross, because I'd love to. I'd love a game of golf with you, and I'd love to chew the fat over a beer, and hopefully
Absolutely.
one day that will come true.
Yeah, well, I know where you live now, and in fact, I will be in Europe in a couple of weeks, but I'm not going to Portugal. I'll be in France, Germany, Spain, and Italy. But I do love Portugal, so next time I'm in that area, the beer's on you.
Look me up.
And we'll play the game of golf.
Fantastic. Well, Gary didn't disappoint, did he? I've been really looking forward to this conversation since we booked him in a few weeks ago. And after reading his book and listening to some of his keynotes that he delivers, and what a lovely guy, especially from humble beginnings as well. Gary is one of those people that really is a trailblazer in doing the opposite, a trailblazer in operating out of his comfort zone, a trailblazer in helping other people see the power of working outside your comfort zone, and to create a world-beating culture, a culture that is the envy of any organization in the world. And the fact that culture translates into sustainable profit and achieving the goals and the purpose and the strategies that those companies set out. It's one of the things where if there's one message that I've learned from all of this, whether it be with Gary or other people like Gary, is that it all starts with the people. It all starts with the culture. If you don't get that right, and I'm talking world-beating right, then all you're doing is twiddling the knobs for the rest of your lives and going round in circles. If you're going to truly break down barriers, if you're truly going to take on that mountain, you have to start with people, and you have to truly believe that. And as he says with his Petri dish and his ingredients, it is about a team of people that are prepared to go to work, protect and feed each other. It's about empathy. It's about humility. It's about the ability to be truly vulnerable and be honest. And to care more about your fellow colleagues than you do yourself. Because by doing that, you automatically create an environment where they want to look after you. It's the way the human spirit works. I'm Jeff Dewing, author of best-selling book, Doing the Opposite, and CEO of Cloud FM. If you'd like to know more about my podcast or my incredible guests, please visit my website at jeffdewing.co.uk. You can also find out more about Cloud FM at cloudfmgroup.com, or simply follow us on LinkedIn. Finally, I'd like to offer a big thanks to my incredible team, Nicola Crawshaw at Cloud FM, Thinking Hat PR, and of course my fantastic production team, What Goes On Media. Thanks for listening, and hope to see you soon.